Let's take a moment to digest some of the bizarre headlines making the rounds in this country. First up, there's a story circulating that the National Security Advisor's official escort vehicle was stolen during Juma prayers in Abuja. Now, I want to say this, a caveat. This hasn't been confirmed yet. So let's just say it's a rumor, or maybe a very peculiar coincidence. But let's assume for a second it's true. Let's just take a moment and think about this, whether or not it's true. A stolen security vehicle in the capital of the country during prayers is just kind of makes you wonder about the state of security when the very people tasked with protecting us are getting their own cars stolen. The irony of it is almost poetic, isn't it? So here we are, grappling with insecurity, but hey, we're doing a fantastic job protecting our official cars. Now, if this rumor turns out to be true, then we are really setting new standards in national security. Forget about the bandits. Just don't let your car get lost in the capital, Abuja. But let's move on, shall we? Because the real thrill, or rather the thrill ride happening today or here is LASTMA's latest traffic rule. If you're caught eating, drinking, or smoking while driving, they will throw you in jail. Yes, you heard that right. You could be locked up for sipping water or munching on your favorite traffic sausage while still stuck in Lagos traffic. And look, I get it. We need order. Sure. But what about the potholes big enough to swallow our cars? What about the traffic jams that make it feel like you have entered another dimension? You can spend an entire day and even night there. And let's not get started on fuel prices that can send you to the brink of tears. But last month's focus, your favorite sausage roll. The company even advertised under the slogan, your favorite traffic companion, and somehow they want to take it away. Now, you would think that they have better things to worry about, like the state of the roads, or how taxpayers' money is being spent, or maybe even ensuring that emergency vehicles can actually get through traffic. But no, we are criminalizing lunchtime. If the police and LASTMA put as much energy into fixing the roads, or better yet, just flushing our streets of crime as they do into penalizing snacks, we might actually have a functional traffic system by now. But hey, what do I know? I'm only yellow. And then we have Idris Abdulkarim's new album, which has been banned because apparently reminding the government that we didn't vote for suffering is too much for the powers that be to handle. And to that I say, wear your big pants. Banning a song because, heaven forbid, about the issues the country faces, right? Don't talk about it, we're fixing it. The real issues like inflation, security, and corruption, no, don't go out, no. Better to go after a protest song. Leave those issues alone. All right, we're fixing it, but the protest song has to be banned. So here we are. The NSA's cars getting stolen, allegedly. LASTMA's cracking down on snacks, and the government is apparently more focused on silencing protest songs than dealing with the problems that actually affect us. Meanwhile, nothing really changes when you think about it. But hey, don't worry. All of this will certainly fix Nigeria. Just eat your lunch in peace, and don't do it in traffic, and the government will handle the rest. Good morning, Nigeria. I would say stay hydrated, stay fed, but for the love of all things traffic related, just don't do it while driving. Don't stay hydrated while driving, because it's a crime, apparently. Zeno.
Oh, hey, Judith. Very interesting.
When you have your helmet on, can they catch you?
See, let's not tell them who that person is, because I want to. Catch is not the word I would use, though. But
oh God, because they can't catch you. I love it.
Let's not tell them, especially about the color. But very interesting take. But I do have something to say. These rules have been in place for at least 8 years. They're only just coming up again. And there are a few. I was on the side of LASTMA for a bit until you mentioned sausage roll, the time we spend in traffic, and also that this also involves drinking water, so that changes how I see things.
Yes,
now, actually, yeah.
And it's concerning because if you, there's a heat wave, right?
Oh yes.
If you are in traffic, your ACs is down, like you are sweating. Yeah. You're telling me I can't drink water?
It's not even that the AC is that, it's that I want to conserve fuel, so I'm not going to use petrol. So I'm not going to use my AC to conserve petrol.
See what? So
there's a lot to unpack when it comes to these rules. Yeah.
Anyway, let's get started to unpack all of these, don't you think so, Mazino?
Yes, let's please come over.
Welcome to Breakfast Extra.
Well, good morning again, and welcome to your go-to weekend companion, what can I say, where the headlines hit differently because we tell them differently, and of course the conversation stays fresh. Welcome once again.
Oh yes, indeed. Welcome.
Now, this is Breakfast Extra, and we've got a powerful lineup for you guys this morning. From Zamfara to Zimbabwe, the stories are real, the issues are raw, and we're not holding back. We begin with Zamfara under fire, a chilling look at the wave of bandit attacks leaving devastating instances as they go. Our correspondent will join us live from Katsina with the latest on the security situation and also the human cost of this ongoing crisis. And then it's a big report on the urgent flood alert issued by the federal government as heavy rains loom. We'll be examining the dangers of waterways encroachment and speaking with the key stakeholders on the Lagos or on how Lagos is preparing. From water to walls, Lagosians are all battling a housing crisis. Rents are skyrocketing and the pressure is real. In today's big story, we unpack the soaring cost and speak with a legal practitioner and a real estate expert on tenants' rights and reforms. Bet you didn't know you had any. Also on the radar, drive safe or face jail time. Going out now is absolutely worrisome, as LASTMA's new warnings has tongues wagging. Eating, drinking, even chewing gum might be illegal. Might. We're going to talk about all of this, so you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Let's do the papers, but on that note regarding these are laws that had been in place since 8 years ago. I remember being on radio and these laws actually came out.
2018.
And we spoke about them. We talked about, we were very concerned about what you actually raised. Eating in traffic, the time spent in traffic, how 2 Wednesdays ago, Lagosians lived on Lagos roads. So are you going to say they can't eat or drink while they're
on the wheel?
So there are many things. I think they need to really address these niggling, very tiny, nuanced issues.
And also, is this a legal overreach? I know that it's been passed into law. It's the bill has now been passed into law and is actually stipulated. But also, sometimes we need to go back and redress certain, laws.
Fine prints.
Just fine prints, right? So what exactly, where do we blur the lines? Does it
involve eating with a spoon or if I can just
like
hold a sausage?
Is it water? Is
it alcohol?
Is it alcohol?
Alcohol,
one has to be specific.
Legal.
And I know that some persons might, spike their drinks, in a sugary bottle.
How would you know?
How would you exactly? So
well, they have to taste it as well.
They have to taste it as well. So I get what they are trying to do, but also there should be mechanisms to check and balance, so there's no, human rights overreach. That's how I see that.
I agree with you on that one. However, now let's do the dailies, shall we? Let's take a look at the front pages and everything that's making news right now. First off, we are going to be looking at the Punch newspaper. Front and center for the Punch big print here, 2027 APC anti-Tinubu coalition battle for Buhari's support. And ruling party worries over ex-president's body language. What body language could they? I'll come back to talk about this. Just give me a second because there's something I want to say that we might also discuss inside of the strips. In any case, PDP governors decide on Ayawu neck today. Boko Haram bomb kills 8 Borno passengers. Very sad. Tinubu Atiku governors mourn ex-coach Chukwu. At the very top, one verdict, 2 victories, politicians twist Supreme Court's rulings. Very interesting read, I must tell you that one. And Nigerians score credit card power agric ministries very low.
Oh, very low.
What can I see? Front page Sunday Punch for you there.
There you go. Move away from Sunday Punch to our next one, and this one is the Sunday Independent. And the very first one that jumps at you here is experts express concern over poor infrastructure amid huge foreign loans. You can find that story on page 2. Say level of infrastructure doesn't tally with borrowed funds. Lament use of loans for recurrent expenditure, less on capital projects. At the top of the newspaper there, Governor Ododo of Kogi unveils state's new mining equipment. You can find that story on page 4. Tinubu, APC unpopular, easy to defeat in 2027. Onovo, you can find that story on page 20. People used my subordinates to bring down my ministry, Archbishop Osa Oni. You can find that story on page 12.
I wonder how he means exactly. How do subordinates bring down your ministry? I'm wondering.
I would give it a go, but I don't exactly go to church.
By the way, it's Palm Sunday.
It is?
It is.
Yeah, see, and you cannot believe that I'm Roman Catholic.
Oh my goodness, you're even much more guilty. I'm just agnostic, so I think I can pass.
Man say that is agnostic since when?
Papers. Papers.
Okay, moving on. LASTMA releases schedule of July 12th. Lagos Council polls, and that's the Lagos State Independent Electoral Commission. President Tinubu mourns death of Christian Chukwu, the famed footballer. May his soul rest in peace. You can find that story on page 2. Lawyers, politicians slam EFCC under Tinubu's watch. You can find that story on page 3. Claims agency following official directives insist anti-graft body now 2 against political opponents. Right next to it, police kill 4 kidnappers terrorizing Asaba, Ogwashi Uku, Obulu Uku, others in Delta. Find the story on page 4. IFPs to return Nigerian underage girls trafficked to Ivory Coast. You can find that story on page 5. Pretty much all of the major headlines here on the Sunday Independent.
All right, now, so let's move on quickly to the Vanguard newspaper. Genocide in play 2, inside story of plots to grab land, wipe out natives. I think this is a story we've been looking for a week. The Nigerian police couldn't bring it to us. The Nigerian military couldn't bring it to us because they feigned ignorance when it came to intelligence gathering. And that's got questions unanswered there. Governor Muftrang and others are saying this. They're saying killings continue. 250 dead since 2023. Ex-Midlard identifies attackers, says they hide weapons inside rocks. If you know the terrain, you'd understand. How difficult environments aid killers of natives, says Senator Plank. And nobody can take our land for cows. Reps members pushes back. At the top for the Vanguard, let's see. Oh no, that's advertorial. Can't take that one. 2027, APC not bothered about coalition, says Usodima. And insecurity, FG rejects U.S. Embassy's post. Pastors' testimonies as unfair and inaccurate. 8 killed, others injured in Borno landmine explosion. Bit more on that inside of our strips. Do you understand? And they owed him for years. Asiyamaka says NFF's hypocrisy exposed as legendary chairman Christian Chukwu dies at 74. That's very sad.
Very sad.
That
indeed.
is very, very sad.
Pretty much all the major papers we can take for now as we switch gears to bring you our very first story for today. And we begin with this morning with very grim developments out of Zamfara State. We'll tell you all about it just after the break. Stay with us. We begin with our big report today, where we begin this morning with grim developments out of Zamfara State, where a fresh wave of banditry and reprisal violence has thrown communities into mourning and fear. In the latest attacks, at least 11 people have been killed and several others injured, and homes and schools and security outposts torched as armed groups continue to terrorize rural areas in Kita and Rijia villages. The assault on Kita Rajia village on Sunday saw houses and vehicles set ablaze, with the residents fleeing for their lives, and one person was confirmed dead. Just days earlier, on Thursday night, 10 members of the Yan Sarki vigilante group were brutally murdered in Rajia village, along with the destruction of 3 school blocks and a security outpost. Security sources say these attacks are likely revenge killings following the death of Isuhu Yellow, a nephew of notorious bandit leader Ado Aliru. Isuhu was reportedly killed in a clash with security operatives and later executed by rival bandits loyal to Dogo Gida.
Now, these 2 kingpins, Ado Aliru and also Dogo Gida, have turned rural communities across Zamfara, Katsina and also Sokoto State into battlegrounds, dragging innocent civilians into a cycle of bloodshed. As we speak, fear and tension grips the region, and security operatives are struggling to contain the surge in attacks. So joining us now for more insight is our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, who's live in Katsina State, another frontline state in the battle against banditry. Jamil, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this Sunday morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. First of all, if you could give us an overview of the situation on ground there right now. What are you hearing from the residents and security sources?
Okay, like you rightly said, this is a reprisal attack, and the last time I think I spoke, I told viewers that this was something the public or the communities were expecting, and it came to happen. And it's quite unfortunate, even security authorities were alerted that something like this would happen, and it happened, and something that shouldn't have happened. So what is happening is Ado Aliru controls, the southern part of Katsina and the eastern part of Zamfara, and his nephew was killed by a rival gang, Dogo Gidi. But what happened was security operatives received tips on his whereabouts, and he was ambushed, but he was injured, and the Dogo Gidi faction killed him. So as a result of that, Ado Aliru, decided to unleash terror on the people. And to give you a context of who Ado Aliru is,
Jamil,
he was the...
Just a second, Jamil.
Jamil, we're having issues with your audio, so I would need you to do me a favor. I need you to disconnect your Bluetooth device, the earpiece that you have on, so you can use your original device audio, so we can hear you more clearer. So if you can help us to disconnect that. Now, whilst you're doing that, for those who are just tuning in, this is Big Reports here on Breakfast Extra on News Central Television. We are talking about the reprisal attacks happening in Zamfara communities, and Zamfara is under fire. There's death tolls have risen, and reports say that these attacks appear to be retaliatory attacks. Jamil, have you done that? Have you disconnected your audio? Jamil Mabai is our correspondent in Katsina. He's going to join us live to give us more updates regarding his audio there. We're just trying to fix his audio just so we can have him join us. Jamil, are you back on?
He's not back on.
It's not back on.
But it's very interesting that we're having these conversations, especially inside of the north here. I keep referring to the strips as there's a very interesting cartoon that we're going to be showing. I hope that the strip comes in sometime inside of this hour. Inside of that one, you'd find a picture where a very concerned governor is reacting to what's happening in the north. And it's about the insurgency or resurgency in this case.
Thank you.
So, there are very many back and forth on Twitter regarding this.
Right.
Some people who are partial to the security situation on the government side, and others who are, well, impartial, let me put it that way. Regarding the government, they're saying they had tried from before. What's changed since 2023? And why is there this resurgence now? And who's paying attention to the resurgence, or are they distracted by other endeavors like 2027?
Nicely
we'll
put.
Get to it.
Nicely put. Jamil, are you back on now?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Fantastic.
Loud and clear,
please.
better. And very succinctly, because we're pressed for time.
So can I continue?
Yes, please, but very succinctly, because we're pressed for time.
Okay, like I was telling you, so to give you the context, Ado Alero controls, the southern part of Katsina and to the eastern part of Zamfara. And also, what happened was, experts alerted communities, alerted security personnel that these attacks were imminent, they were going to happen, and they happened. And these attacks shouldn't have happened, but they happened. But to understand who Ado Alero is, Ado Alero was the bandit kingpin at a point in time, was banned as traditional ruler in one of the communities under Faskari local government in Katsina State. And in attendance, you have security personnel, police, and the district head who banned him. And it was after the incidents that happened, the Topanin incidents, that the government decided to suspend the district head. So that's to show you how powerful Ado Alero is. And at a point in time, Ado Alero was protecting communities around his territory from bandit attacks. So what happened was because his nephew, Isuhu Yelu, who operates along the Zamfara axis and whose movement was tipped to security personnel, and they attacked Isuhu, and as a result, the Dogo Gidi killed him. So he decided to unleash this terror on communities. In the month of March alone, a total of 302 people have been killed in Zamfara alone by Ado Alero, and over 84 people have been killed in Katsina alone by the Ado Alero attacks. And when you look at the kidnapping, a total of almost 300 and I think 2 people also have been kidnapped in Zamfara State alone. And these attacks, Ado Alero said he is going to keep unleashing this terror, on these communities. So, experts have alerted more attacks are going to happen, more attacks are coming. And 4 days ago, again, another group, which I'm yet to confirm whether they are linked to Ado Alero, they went to a village called Pakai near my hometown in Mumbai. And what they did, they began to rape the women in that community. And, but I'm yet to link whether the bandit group is, they have any link attached to Ado Alero. So this is an overview of what has been happening.
So these are very worrying. These are very worrying details that you're telling us. But what about the authority? What are they saying or doing with all of this information that you're telling? Now, have they gotten the same information, and are they acting on it?
Of course they have. The authorities, are overwhelmed when you look at the whole situation, one. And secondly, the authorities, when incidences like this happened, they try to keep it close to their chest. They hardly respond. When the nephew of Ado Alero, was killed, they said they were the ones that killed him. And it was later we realized no, it wasn't the authorities. It was the Dogo Gidi faction who killed the nephew. So the authorities, I can tell you, they are overwhelmed, and they haven't said anything about this, and which I don't think if with the level of skeletal distribution of the security operatives along Katsina, they can do anything about Ado Alero. Yeah, unless something, there is a kind of a synergy between the community vigilante, what's called the police and the military. I think that is when they can confront Ado Alero forces.
It seems that this person, this Ado Alero, he seems to be very powerful. It begs to ask a question about the residents of these communities. How are they faring? How are they able to provide, or better yet, provide security and secure their lives and livelihood?
Okay, the irony is, let me tell you something. Ado Alero, like I said, at a point in time, he was banned, given a traditional title. And he held this big, massive, Tobani ceremony, and it was all over social media, And he, at a point after that, he said, communities around Faskari and Ndume, that is the southern part of Katsina, that no bandit will ever attack, communities along that territory. And there was no attack for almost 2 years. So what happened? The killing of his nephew. That was what angered him. Ado Alero is among the top echelon when you're talking of kingpins. He's bigger than Turji. He's bigger than Dogogi. He's bigger than, all these Kachalas and what have you, in terms of money, in terms of, gangs, followers, in terms of weapons and ammunition. You can never compare these bandits, other groups, with Ado Alero. And quite unfortunate when you talk of the military personnel, the leader of the community watch corps within the axis of Ado Alero came to Katsina, had a chat with journalists, and he made heavy allegations with regards to the involvement of army in the activities of bandits. He said when people get kidnapped, according to him, he alleges that when people get kidnapped, when they are taking money for ransom, they have to pay the army before the army will escort them. 2, the army escorts bandits, their farmlands, to destroy and devour their farm produce. 3, they have caught a number of informants with ammunition, and they told them that they received the ammunition from a certain soldier, they will hand them over to the soldiers and nothing will happen. So these are allegations he made, and he was a retired major, the leader of the community shield, and we're working on that report per se. It will be out within the week, So that's to show you how big Ado Alero is, and how authorities are fueling the banditry within that region we're talking about.
All right. Well, I mean, Jamil, you've done this justice. I wish we had enough time, but there's never enough time to discuss issues of security, especially for the North. But I must say thank you for taking out the time to do justice to this topic. And we hope to see in the coming week what's going to happen for the residents of this community in Zamfara. But Jamil, once again, thank you. Jamil Mabai is our correspondent in Katsina, giving us a bit of insight following retaliatory attacks and death toll in Zamfara State. Let's go on a short break, shall we? When we return, we talk about the water rising, flooding, and rainfall. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Big report now. That's a story.
It is.
Yes,
it's a big
you.
report.
Now, for our big report, we turn our focus to a looming threat that could drown lives and livelihoods if urgent action isn't taken: flooding. Now, as the rains intensifies across the country, the federal government has issued a severe weather alert through the Nigerian Meteorological, I was going to get that wrong, agency, warning of heavy rainfall in states including Cross River, Ogun, Edo, and Delta over the next 3 days. But while rainfall is inevitable, human activities are making flooding worse, especially in urban areas like Abuja, where the encroachment of natural waterways has become a troubling trend. From private homes to shopping malls and gated estates, developers have built over-drainage channels and blocked water routes meant to protect the environment. The result? Flooded streets, collapsed buildings, and displaced communities. News Central's correspondent Aisha Salihu has been tracking the situation in the Federal Capital Territory, examining how real estate developers have overridden environmental safety and what can be done to reverse the trend.
Construction of private property beneath bridges following the encroachment of waterways is now becoming a popular trend in Abuja. A visit to several satellite communities such as Karu, Orozo, Bayagi, and others has identified the erection of private property along water channels as citizens now encroach on the capital's waterways. Experts say that the consequences of building on these floodplains and within designated buffer zones extend beyond property damage, as stagnant water also creates breeding grounds for mosquitoes, thereby increasing the risk of malaria and other waterborne diseases. This also makes sanitation a major challenge, further jeopardizing the health of residents.
If anybody goes to build on waterways, is automatically going against the development control regulation for FCT. We all know what happened last year or some previous years. We all knew what happened some previous year ago, whereby there's this blockage of the water channels that led to flooding in some estates. If you go to Lokogoma, one of the estates along Lugbe, and lives were lost. Lives of innocent citizens were lost.
Although the FCTA acknowledges the problem, residents who live within these areas, while speaking off camera, say that this has been possible because enforcement is weak. Many claim that permits were granted in error or that illegal structures are being allowed to proliferate affected waterways without timely intervention. Experts in the construction sector warn that this will further contribute to environmental hazards and natural disasters if left unchecked.
So water is not it's natural that water flows, right? It's natural. But you're building on this path, you understand, blocking the canal way or the channel for water. That's when you begin to have issues like flooding. Aside the fact that drainage systems are being blocked by waste, understand, from the environment.
Waterways encroachment degrades natural ecosystems, disrupts drainage patterns, and can lead to the pollution of water sources. While the delicate balance of the environment is disrupted for short-term gains, the big question is, what can be done to end this trend?
Once you don't get a building plan approval, your building plan is not approved for you to commence building, and you erect any building anywhere, automatically that building is considered as an illegal structure. And once is a legal structure, the department, which is development control, have the right to go in there and put down your building.
For residents living in these precarious conditions, the fear of the next heavy rainfall looms large. They are caught between the need for shelter and the constant threat of disaster.
The beauty of Abuja should not come at the cost of the safety and well-being of its residents. Ignoring the dangers of encroaching waterways is a disaster waiting to happen. It is time now to take proactive actions just to ensure there is safety of lives, property, and the environment. In the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, for News Central, Aishat Salihu.
Many thanks to Aisha there for that detailed report. Now, the issues raised go beyond Abuja. They speak to a wider problem of urban planning failure, climate change, and weaker enforcement of building codes across many states in Nigeria. And so to help us unpack this further, we're joined now by three guests. First is Aishat Salihu, the journalist behind the report. She joins us live. Also joining us is a senior climate change program manager at the Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, and that's Olamide Ogunlade. He joins us virtually as well. And also right here in the studio is Engineer Mahmood Adegbite. He is the Permanent Secretary at the Lagos State Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources, to speak to us on Lagos State's preparedness, especially in light of the NIMET's 3-day heavy rainfall alert. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for joining us. Aisha, can we start with you in the report? Let's get our background again. First off, there might have been things that didn't get into the report. I'm very concerned about the Karu instance because I lived in Karu for a while and I know what it is like when lands are allotted to people and to see how haphazard that can be. The effect on the environment. What are the possibilities of perhaps maybe flooding in a place like Karu or Lugbe or all the satellite towns in Abuja?
Thank you so much, Mazina, for having me on the program this morning. Just like I stated on the report, there are so many people who we actually tried to interview, try to get them on camera, but they refused speaking with us because they kept saying that this particular activity has been perpetrated by, allegedly, they are blaming the FCDA, that's the Federal Capital Development Authority, for, granting these permits or maybe granting them in error or also allowing for proliferation of buildings around waterways by, say, private builders or estate developers. And now, regarding the fears that you have stated, residents within Karu region, Orozo, Begi, Lugbe, they spoke to me, and then you could tell that they have their fears. They were saying that the rainy season is almost here. As a matter of fact, it is here already because it has started raining in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. It's just not as frequent as one would expect it to be. So we're still, going into proper rainy season. And they are telling us that, especially people who live within Lugbe area, there is a particular estate that, the FCT official didn't mention, or there is an estate in Lugbe where there is always fear of flooding in that particular estate during rainy season, because the houses in that estate are built on waterways, according to what the experts are telling us. But the residents would tell you, residents in the estate would tell you that even if that is the issue, the situation at the moment, how did the people who built these houses, the estate developers, how did they get the permit? I mean, this estate has been in existence for years, for decades. So how did they get the permit to build on those waterways? And then we have it is becoming a little bit political, because you could tell FCDA talking about we're going to pull down structures. I mean, when you go to that particular estate, you would see there are signs for FCDA saying they're pulling down the structure because it is on the waterways. Even during the rainy season, you would see that entrance into the estate, it's difficult. You could have issues with loss of lives, loss of properties, and also the resultant effect on the environment. I mean, so what I'm saying here is that there are fears by residents in the FCT, especially those who live in the satellite communities like Karu, Rozo, Begi, Lugbe, amongst others, about the coming rainy season. We're just getting into the rainy season. They are scared about losing their property, because this goes on yearly. And then for FCDA, they keep saying we have provided places for you to relocate to. Why aren't you willing to relocate? And then from the people we spoke with, although they refused to see the camera, they did say that why would we relocate? The place you're moving us to is not as conducive or as convenient for us. I mean, we have children who school in this area. We have our businesses in this area. How come you want to move us to other places? And it's not looking like, they are accusing other estates within the same area that they are the ones, somehow blocking their own waterways and now channeling all of the waterways into this particular estate. So the love of the water, the much of the water that comes during the rainy season, that results to flooding, it's now more in the estate in Lugbe. So the situation is just something that I think that there are lots of factors put in place, and until we begin to address these issues, I mean, every year we keep having press conferences, press releases from the estate leadership, management of the estate, and also from FCDA. It's back and forth. I have been covering that estate for 3 years now, and it's a lot of
I hope
issues.
You can hear us. Aisha, I hope you can hear us. We're trying to stop you there so that we can get to another guest, but we'll be coming back with more questions.
Let's come to Lagos, because all of the things that Aisha said is very, very important for us to highlight, which also happens in Lagos. And it begs to ask the question whether it is oversight, complacency, or just downright incompetence.
Or greed.
Or greed, there we go. But Lagos is a potpourri of a number of issues, right? And we have with us here the PEMSEC engineer, to give us a bit of give us a bit of insight. Most importantly is the matter of flooding. Lagos is no stranger to flooding here in Lagos, which is the commercial hub of Nigeria. Can you tell us what measures your agency has put in place ahead of this warning by NIMET?
Thank you very much. I think I would take the question to come around and say, what is this? Is the city ready? When you say government, everybody assumes that it is always about government. We all heard what your correspondent in Abuja said. It's as if she is talking about Lagos, everything she was saying. So it means all around our cities, the situation is almost the same. So it begs the question that, are we as a people ready for floods, or we are willing to make sure that we are not flooded? Because the conversation is always around what is government doing, what are the things government has put in place. But I will ask the question, as a people, because it's more than the government. It takes more than one hand to clap. No matter what you put in place, if the people says that they want to be flooded, then how do you want to help someone who wants to drown? except you forcibly take him away from that side. So I would rather say that, you know, it's a symbiotic relationship. It's something that duties and responsibilities. Fine, we have over 100 primary channels within Lagos, as recognized in our master plans, and we are ready to start maintaining all of them.
Ready to start or already started?
Started already. You know, again, you can't go around over 100 channels within a year. So it's something that is all year round. And we also have a team that is dedicated to just going to all these channels and doing them 24/7. But the issue is, what is our citizens doing? On Friday, we went around Lagos Island, despite the fact that you saw some trending videos about flooded areas and all that. We are actually working in those sites. But what about the solid waste disposal of the citizen? What about people, you know, again, our gutters, our drains are meant to just carry storm water. So you ask yourself, where are the water coming from when it is not raining? You still have everywhere flooded, and yet it's not raining. So it shows that it is not only storm water that you find in those drains. People empty their kitchen waste, which are not treated, and they go to pollute your waterways. So it's something that, while we are talking about what the government is doing, we should also be asking our citizens. Again, what Aisha mentioned is issue about enforcement. I like that statement, but the point is, what is integrity? Must I always enforce before you do the right thing? Must I always? So it begs the question that, are we as a people? Because we can't be everywhere. We expect people to even alert us.
All right.
Why will you be silent when someone is blocking your waterways? Okay. And you are silent?
I have a curious question. Mr. Ogunlade, I'd like to say we're going to come to you, but I'd like to lay down the issues here first before we come to you as a climate change expert.
Right.
But to you, sir, regarding, let me give you two examples here. Let's take, for instance, Festac. And since we're looking at Lagos as against Ojuelegba, Festac was built with manholes and a very interesting system where your waste from your home, and I mean your human waste, is actually channeled through into these manholes, and they don't go into gutters. The gutters, like you say, are for just water. When it rains, they drain into the canal all around Festac. But in Ojuelegba, for instance, people's human waste from their toilets empty into the gutters. Is it that there is no provision in terms of town planning when it comes to these areas, or these, you know, anywhere built in Lagos after Festac or the rest, after 1980, let's put it that way? Because it would seem to be the case. And if that is the case, what solutions then? Because these infrastructure are already in place. You can't change them. You can't start building manholes now or drainage systems on the buildings currently. What's the solution? Okay,
it's a simple thing. There are areas where you have combined sewers. I mean, where you have both the stormwater and the sewer, but it's expensive. That is not what we are practicing in Lagos. So Lagos has a separate, the sewer, we don't have sewer lines in most areas. So your home waste actually should go to your septic tank and the soakaway, while stormwater just goes into the drain. That is what is provided almost everywhere.
That's what is practiced.
Except where you have those estates where they have their
sewage
system. However, what people are doing, which we are currently enforcing, is people puncture their sewer line, their septic tank to go into public. Some houses don't even have that. Don't even have septic tank. So it's a question of, as I said, as a people, are we
conscious?
Ready? Are we conscious? Do we have that integrity to make sure that I will not do anything, my activities will not disturb my neighbor? So those are the things that we need to start asking ourselves. As a government, I can assure you that what you have, the maximum that you have is just flash flood. And once you have that, just be rest assured that within hours, the flood, unless there's a deliberate blockage somewhere, which we will get to if we know where those things are. However, we need people to also act as good citizens.
There's as we talk about flash floods, it makes me wonder about canal expansion as well as our wetlands that we've been selling off. But let me come to Ogunlade for this question about wetlands, canal expansions and water channels. Giving from a climate resilience standpoint, how dangerous is this trend of building on water channels, especially with the rainfall intensifying, the flash floods and the rising sea levels?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And I must just say for a fact that it is not healthy, not in Nigeria, not in any part of the world. You know, by science, it shouldn't be. By practice, it should also be discouraged, not even for a developing climate like ours. But I'd like to, make a contribution to what the term actually said. The business of government is to ensure social orientation. Unfortunately, that it is. It is to enforce compliance and to allow the people to do the needful. And I must also add by saying where government and the people seem to be on the same page is at the level of problem identification when it comes to advancing policies, to address flood. In Nigeria, maybe in Lagos State, for instance, like Aisha rightly mentioned, the problem is there right before government and the people. But when it comes to formulating policies or implementing policies, often it becomes the exclusive preserve of the government. And people should be aware, even though they are the beneficiaries of this policy, there are different factors, that are causing flooding or that are triggering flooding in our own part of the world. Unfortunately, we seem to narrow our conversation to just one or two of these three main factors, that are responsible for flooding. Meteorologically, it's going to happen. So there are meteorological factors that are triggering flooding. Either you like it or not, the glacier is melting, climate change is happening, and of course, there's a lot of water coming from the water. There's melting of the glacier, like I did mention. There's increased rise in the sea level. So this naturally will result to flooding. Then the physical factor, and this is where bulk of these duties lies on the mandate or the schedule of government. It appears we tend to urbanize as a people without considering the consequences of urbanization, which has to do with what are those things that should define our urbanization as a people? Are we actually enforcing our drainage policies and management practices in Lagos State? Do we have to wait? It has become like an annual issue where we have to wait for DIMET to release annual caution before we go into action. It's quite expensive for us to do, 100% turnaround for those, water channels that exist in Lagos, for instance. But then, do we have to wait for when floods are here before we embark on what should be, the primary duties of state actors? And that begs the question of priority and, of course, social inclusion, like I did mention in the policy making process. Now, there are human factors. So I want to say people are complacent, people are building on waterways. And of course, they are not best practice, like I said, but it's still the duty of government to ensure compliance of standards. And of course, have people to be on the same page. Because after all, the primary responsibility of government is the welfare of its people. So we have so many cautionary measures that we should adopt. Lagos is not exceptional in this regard. The whole of Nigeria, 30 out of 36 is prone to, to flood. And we hear this almost every year. But then the question is, how harmonized are we in our interventions to solving this? Lagos is flying exceedingly well. As far as development is concerned. But there are issues that we need to cater for. And this has to do with our channels. In Ogun, where I work, basically, it appears when rain don't start, people don't clear the drainage. And government don't even come to do the clear up. When they do this clear up, they have to wait and allow this water to find their way to the drains again before. It appears it has to do with prioritization of policy and, the amount of involvement that, people have in this policy making process. So it's beyond just saying, we have a policy, the people are not aware. It is having an harmonized intervention that has the collective interest, of both civil society, the media. How much of media leverage is the government even considering to orientate the people as regards?
All right, Mr. Ogunlade.
Unfortunately, there are so many issues.
So much to cover.
I know there's so much to talk about, but we're going to address it. We're going to address it, don't worry. But thank you very much for pointing out certain things. I want to come to the engineer here, engineer deputy. Regarding what he said, first off, let's put this on the shelf that it is the sole preserve of the government to actually educate the people, to inform the people. Not coerce them, enforcement comes after education. But let's leave that on the side. Let's talk about development in Lagos State as it is. Now, does the office of the Lagos State Office of Drainage Service and Water Resources, do they have a system where people, after getting authorization to build their houses, actually come to your office to perhaps navigate how their development is going to affect drainage? Yeah. Because if that is there, then people might not know about it. If it is not there, then perhaps that's part of the problem.
Also, is there inspections as well for ongoing? Because there's so many constructions ongoing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you need to remember when I started my conversation, I didn't want to start highlighting what we are doing, because again, it's usual rhetoric, what is government doing, and all that. Now, back to your question. My ministry is not responsible for building plan approval. However, when you are building near the water body or wetlands, then you do need certification from us. And we inspect and make sure that it will not affect the drainage or the wetland. Again, just as you said, we have our master plans that is well publicized, and even what I even want to do extra is to make sure that I visit most of these gated estates to make sure that you explain what the issues are. You lay bare, just as you said, let us make the whole plan accessible to everyone. Everybody has it. There is no one, I dare say that there is no one in Lagos.
But I see a problem there, Engineer Adebile. And the problem is that these gated estates that you want to visit already have a problem. The problem might already be because they've built perhaps maybe on waterways, or their drainage systems out of their homes go into not sewers but storm releases. So it's like putting the horse after the cart here. And that's why I proceeded by asking whether there are permissions given to these gated estates even before they built from your ministry.
Now, I've answered you that before they build, we do check and we do certify. That is not what I was saying that I'll be visiting. Okay. It's just to make sure that we have all stakeholders on board, as well as letting them know what they are supposed to be doing. Again, just as your mentioned, that it is a collective. I want to go beyond we have this, we have that. I want to make sure that everyone is in sync as to what we need to be doing. I've just explained that we have our master plans, we are following those master plans, we're expanding our channels, both secondary channels and primary channels. However, this tertiary channel is strictly, that is the ones that you see on the roads, is responsibility of local government and the resident. So that is what, and everybody knows that, by the way. So it's not a question of do they know, it's a question of how well do you want to now make sure that people are well aware. Awareness is something. So what we are doing, again, if you've been monitoring what we have been doing, is to make sure that we go from localities, communities, to explain all these issues. Again, Lagos State is not waiting until the predictions are done by NIMET. We are constantly in touch with each other. We are working with all the national agencies. We even have our own weather stations to be able to predict what is going to happen. So we know when rains are coming. For today, for example, we have issued a statement as to what the level of rains will be. We know that we won't have rains much today. It might be later in the afternoon. So on a daily basis, we do issue flood alert. We do measure what will come. But again, how well prepared are our people? Just like someone mentioned while they were making their presentation, that there are some localities that are well below the sea level in Lagos. For example, the Ajegunles, those around the Lagos Lagoon, around the Korodu area. You know, advisory messages have been sent to them. We have even visited them that between so period and so period, you will be flooded. So please get to a higher place. Again, you can't
I know that even as far back as the 90s and the 80s, there were flooding in some of those areas, which sometimes were happening in 3 years, and that's because of the water, the rainfall would vary over those years. But times have changed, and climate change is here. It's not man-made now. It is man-made, but it's a bigger force that we're fighting. And so, as much as we're talking about the human factors here, are we prepared for the force of nature? Is that for nature?
Okay, let me give you an example of what we are doing in Lagos Island.
Yes.
For you to know that we're actually prepared for that. We have studied the effect of the climate change, and we are regularly monitoring the tidal level within the lagoon. So our infrastructure that we are building now, the roads, by the way, we are presently expanding all channels within Lagos Island to ensure that we take care of what is to come. And then we have raised the level of the road. So it means that as the tidal level is being monitored, we know at what level. Presently, we know that we need to raise certain things, we need to expand the channels. So in terms of resilience, we have monitored all those things. But again, it takes time for you to start moving from. So we are making sure that at least, let's take it block by block to ensure that we cover the entire state. So we are very certain that by the time we finish all these things, flooding will be very minimized. You cannot say you will eliminate flooding,
but it will be minimized.
But it will be drastically minimized.
Let me turn to Aisha. Aisha, we apologize.
I fear we may have forgotten you there. We did not.
Aisha, we didn't forget. We also didn't forget that the report actually emanated from Abuja. So I want to bring some of the concerns that have been discussed here right now with Engineer Deputy over to Abuja. Now we can see what Lagos State is doing. From your report or your research, did you discuss with any of the authorities regarding what might be done? And do the residents who have built these houses or developed these estates over waterways, do they have any fears? Because if we know Abuja very well and the FCT minister, is demolitions underway. So what are their fears, and what are the authorities doing, like Engineer Deputy here has told us about Lagos? Did you find out?
Okay, Mazino, so just like Lagos State, the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, has its own master plan. So, I mean, there is a master plan for every developer to follow. So you're expected to build along certain areas, leave green areas out of it, leave waterways out of it and all of that. But then when you have some of these estate developers or private individuals who do not approach the FCDA to get, the proper document, the proper approval for building these structures, that is where the issues start. And then we have residents who may not be aware that the houses they are buying or they have moved into through rent is prone to flooding. And then you now see houses during the rainy season, you see their walls are wet, and then there's moist on the wall, the molds coming out and all of that, apart from the water that even comes into the building. Yeah, these are the fears. I mean, it's very paramount, it's very particular in satellite communities where houses, homes are built in these areas, right? In these waterlogged area. Apart from, demolition, just like I stated earlier, the FCDA would tell you that for people who have gone on to do these things, they are considered illegal. I mean, an investigation panel will be set up, and then they would go on to look at, did you actually get a proper building approval from the FCDA? And if you claim you got from the FCDA, which FCDA official did you get this from? Is it the original approval? But then again, you have residents who will tell you that it's the same, allegedly, it's the same FCDA officials who are granting permits, or they're granting these permits in error to those estate developers and to those private individuals, to get their building structures erected on this waterways and waterlogged areas, because maybe they must have paid them something, or there has been some settlement that has been done. So now, the FCDA, that is the real FCDA, now the officials who are enforcing, where they notice illegal structures and flooding happening in those areas, consistent flooding, year in, year out, every time rainy season comes, they just go there and then they say, you know what, we're giving you say notice, say maybe 2 months, 3 months, this is even prior to the rainy season, you have to relocate, you have to move your structure, you have to move your things, your property into another place, because if you don't do that, they mark buildings and then they say we're coming to demolish, and they do that. They have been doing that, and then you see people begging, pleading, and saying, where do we have to go? We don't have any other place to go, and all that. So they would rather, for some people, they would rather just manage and mitigate the challenges posed by flooding. They don't mind having to move their property out rainy season, and they're just scooping water out of their homes.
Right.
And once the dry season
Aisha, when you put those X signs, because I was doing the signature for the X signs, I know those signs, those bold signs, they're pretty much everywhere. But hey, we're pressed for time, and it's very clear that there's a bigger issue here at play when we talk about our wetlands, and that is the housing deficits that the major cities in Nigeria face. And that's a conversation for another time. And I trust you to pick this up to do a report on that. For the capital, Abuja. But Aisha, many thanks for joining us. Aisha Salih, who is a News Central spokesman, who brought us this report all the way from the FCT Abuja, capital of Nigeria. Also, Olamide Ogunlade, Senior Climate Change Program Manager at Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA. He also joined us to give us a bit of insight on the climate change aspect of this. And finally, here in the studio with us was Engineer Mahmood Adigbite. He is a Permanent Secretary at the Lagos State Office of Drainage Services and Water Resources, giving us a bit of insight on how prepared Lagos is ahead of the rainy season. Gentlemen and lady, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you for all of your insight and perspective. It's been a very informative discussion. Indeed. But here's where we draw the curtains. When we come back on the other side, it's going to be time for us to talk about more housing. But this time, tenants have rights. After the break.
And Nigeria, welcome. Let's do the strips, shall we? For me, it's the most exciting part of every weekend, so you can tell I'm excited. I hope the producers will give me time this time to finish everything. Judith, you're laughing. You know they do. I'm calling you guys out. We need more time on today's strips. Thank you. That's what, you guys are talking your own. Judith, let's do this together, shall we?
Let's.
Yes, let's start with our very first strip this morning, shall we? If we can have that up. Now, the strips are a way of telling exactly what we're going through, but in a more fun way. And we love them, and all through the week we gather them and have a showcase here. And we've picked out the very interesting ones from through the week, and I'm going to be giving some very definitive definitions. So let's start. Our first strip for today is coming from, I'm wondering which one we're going to get first this time today. Let's see, guys. Now.
Business day?
Yes, business day. Let me balance. Let me step out of the way for just a bit. Now, as you know, our president left the country only early this week. Or was it early this week? And where did he go to? To France. That was last week. He went over to France, where he will be taking a look at his administration's efforts so far. This cartoon here, Monsieur Président, my friend, I hope you're doing very fine in your new office. He's like, no, please, please, please. Can you come and help me block all these news channels? Their wahala is too much. It's the president is in Paris, and he doesn't want to be bothered about what's happening inside of Nigeria, because you people's wahala is too much. I beg, please, can I breathe for a minute? You get it, yes?
Yes,
what do you think about the president's holiday?
I don't think that he should have taken a holiday, although he said he was away for, what's the term that they use now these days, every time he leaves the country?
Well, I don't know which one was it this time. There's so many.
And there's so many terms, and very interesting terms as well. But if we're to cast our minds back to 2010, 2011, 2013, 2014, especially when a certain person who campaigned under the slogan, I went to school without shoes, and so your dreams can come true, you know, and when security issues were going on, particularly a kidnap of certain girls in certain area in northeast Nigeria, every single time he jetted out of the country,
it was a problem for the opposition party, wasn't it?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But this time, this dispensation has now been blind, or they are angry at any
Judith,
form of dissent.
Judith, this administration has taken it to, it would seem, another level with the travels and itinerary outside of Nigeria.
Yeah, and at a time, Exactly, and at a time where we actually need you to be here to steer the country, the resurgence of all of these attacks, the re-emergence of all these attacks, and all these state actors.
Don't go there. We're coming. I'll give you time to talk about that. Don't worry, Judith.
Why are you
it's your show today. It's your show today.
Speak their language.
It's your show today, Judith. Let's see our next strip for this morning. Okay. Now we've got a couple. This one. Okay, fine. During the week, there was the ambassadorial nominees. It hit social media, and the agency actually came out to tell that no, you guys, that was a wrong list. In that list, I think there were a couple of names: former governor of Abia State, Enugu State, Okezie Ikpeazu, Ifeanyi Ugwanyi, Senator Shehu Sani made the list, ex-aide of former President Goodluck Jonathan, Reno Mokri. They were all reported to be on this list, but the governor, the government came out to tell that no, that's not a real list, so please pay no attention to it. They have actually concluded the vetting of persons nominated. They didn't give any number or any names, but they did give the numbers: 106 missions, 26 embassies, 22 high commissions, and 11 consulates globally. They have that list. But what you saw from before the week, no, that's why you see here, these guys are being tossed into the bin. No, you guys are wrong. It's not that list. No, he's not going to make it. You know that guy?
I am very I am in confusion.
I loved it.
I have been looking at, I said...
It's your brother now.
Gofford.
Oh, come on, Judith, hush. Judith.
Good.
Judith. Let's move on quickly. Somebody change the strip. Can we have another strip? Help us out. Let's move on to another strip. Moving on now.
Moving on.
The security situation in the north is taking another dimension. I am handling security like I promised. Our security apparatus are overwhelmed, underfunded, and I don't know what we're resorting to now, if what animal is this is going to save the situation. I'm still a bit unclear regarding this business day strip. But there is another one that relates to the security situation in Nigeria that I really want. You want to try? Go ahead, please.
So this is a metaphor for the herdsmen.
Okay.
Right? This is a metaphor for the herdsmen. And what is supposed to be a cow is now pretty much a monster, right? And it's not a... Mazino, you've watched Harry Potter, right? You've read Harry Potter.
Yes, I have.
The Sorcerer's Stone, the Philosopher's Stone, the Sorcerer's Stone, or Philosopher's Stone, the very first installment, when they were going to get the stone, there was a three-headed dog that is borrowed from the Greek mythology.
Yeah.
You know, instead of the three-headed dog, this is the one-headed dog.
If it looks like a dog to you, that's a totally different animal.
But also, watch that, it is sitting at the staircase in an entrance to somewhere.
Okay.
Do you get what I mean?
No.
And those dogs are supposed to be guarding something. Either peace, either they always guard something. In the Greek mythology, before you get to Hades, there's a dog there.
You've got a very interesting take on this.
Yeah,
I want to show you another one.
I don't know.
I want to show you another one that might help your definition of it. Can we move on to the other one about security now? It's got the president in it, and it's also got the governor of Borno State, Baba Gana Zulum, in it. Now, this is also related to that past strip here.
Holding a calculator.
No, I'll tell you. I'll tell you what this is. So, Baba Gana Zulum has told, it was in the news over the week, regarding the insurgency of the north, in the north. Let me take that word back, the resurgency. Now, if you see that we have Boko Haram here on that tree stump, well, you can see it's sprouting again, and he's trying to get the attention of the individual there with the very familiar hat, who is obviously concerned about what? 2027. So, is it because of that distraction that's seen insurgency come back in Nigeria? That's a very big question. Now, I will let you continue on what it was you were saying while I extract certain information from Twitter, from the artist's Twitter page and people's response to what he said. You go ahead while I get that.
So that tree stump there is labeled Boko Haram, and you can see that it's regrowing, so hence the tilt towards resurgency. And you can see that the governor is looking sideways to the figure that looks like the presidency, tapping him to get his attention.
Yeah, come back. Something's happening here in the north.
But in the meantime, and I like the play that's going on, he's calculating his approach to 2027. But also, like, it could be any figure. It could be him just calculating the inflation issues. It could be him doing a bunch of things.
So are you saying that the president is overwhelmed with every other thing and not paying attention to
no,
security?
That's what the art is trying to put.
Sorry.
You know, so it can. That's the thing about art. It's subjective. You can play it whichever way you want to play. It's like, is it really 2027 or is calculating number of barrels per day?
That would be River State. Let's not talk about. let's not go there.
You
That's
see
another
what
one.
I'm doing there?
Now,
yeah.
in response to this is Mustafa, by the way. He pens these very beautiful artwork for Daily Trust. This is off of Daily Trust. The previous one was from Business Day, and that was Asuko. Now, he put this up on his Twitter page, and there was a very interesting comments that I read that I thought I needed to share here. Now, someone went up on there and responded, "Where was your cartoon when the military was neutralizing terrorism in the Northeast and Northwest? We all know what we're doing. Bad news sells your sausage roll, and will make the peddlers of bad news appear as pro-people, anti-establishment, so and so and so." He shakes his head after SMH. Bulama, the artist, responded. He said, "Who chopped down the tree initially?" That's a very interesting question I need an answer to. Did we actually chop down the tree of insurgency?
Did we ever chop down the tree?
Did we bait it? Did we satiate it? Did we have arrangements or agreements? What exactly happened then that sort of like took it out of the picture, away from the front burner? And why is it coming back now? I think these are questions that we absolutely need to answer.
Rhetorical questions. We will not address it.
To get to the main problem of the resurgency of Boko Haram or whatever banditry that we have in the north. My take there.
Yeah, and succinctly put, nicely put, all I have to say is that shout out to all these artists. You know, this is chef's kiss. That's all. You know,
I knew you were going to say that word. I don't know why, but I
kiss.
just knew you were going to say that word. In any case, that's it for the strips for today. We do have others, but our producers have told us that we have to go.
It's okay, leave.
So we have to go.
They're doing their work. And you're welcome back. Now, if there's one thing that hits the average Lagosian harder than fuel prices right now, it's rent. From the sprawling suburbs of Ikorodu to the high-rise aspirations of Lekki, residents are struggling to cope as rents spiral beyond reach. What used to be a yearly inconvenience has now become a monthly financial nightmare for many. Add to that the unregulated antics of housing agents charging multiple inspection fees and demanding rent in bulk, and you have a full-blown housing crisis on your hands. So News Center's correspondent Bettina Onweli has been speaking to tenants, landlords and real estate experts on what's fueling the surge and whether the government's new rent reform efforts can bring relief. Let's take a look at her report.
Lagos, Nigeria's bustling commercial capital, is no stranger to high living costs, but house rent inflation has become a growing concern. In recent months, many tenants across the city have seen rent increases ranging from 20 to 50%, with little to no improvement in housing conditions.
The high rents, you then see the agents coming to tell you that you need to pay 20% for the agent fee. Then the what do you even call it again? They call on that one legal. They call that one to is 20%. Then they come again and tell you damage. That one, in fact, I paid 300%. That one is more than the 20% they collected for the house I paid. So even this morning, the colleague was saying that, oh, you want to get an apartment for the brother of just a room apartment, 500K, and other charges is 500K. So it's crazy.
Right now, not even in Lagos alone, everywhere it is that bad. People complain a lot, and we hope Landlords Association can do something about it.
All those landlord of a thing, they should reduce house rent. You understand? Because not everybody could afford building houses or buying houses on their own for now. You have to stay for somebody's house.
Many people are outside that they cannot rent house because before they can find money to eat, to do other things. So that one alone is take all over the money. Before we rent house per month, maybe 1,500, 2,000, 1,800. Now when you want to rent house per month, 15,000, 10,000, even the one of 25,000. So nobody can avoid that. It's too much.
Experts attribute the inflation to a combination of factors such as rapid urbanization, a lack of affordable housing, and inflationary pressures affecting construction materials. However, the routine complaints from locals underscores the urgent need for the urgent reform in the housing sector. As the cost of living continues to rise, it is the responsibility of stakeholders to work together to ensure Lagosians are not priced out of their homes.
Most people are not earning much. The economy is not sustainable for most of the workers of Lagos. As a matter of fact, people who are even able to rent these are traded properties are people who are all working in Nigeria per se. They are working online, they are working globally. So where are the doctors going to stay? Most of the doctors can afford monthly rents. Most of the teachers can afford monthly rents. We need the state government and the federal government to go back to providing affordable estates. They have to start building affordable estates. Right now, we are having shortage in homeless home supply. So the government has to start building government and state, federal housing estates that will be affordable.
Housing advocates are urging the Lagos State government to take bold action, from rent control regulations to massive investments in affordable housing. Meanwhile, tenants are calling for transparency, support, and fairer policies. As Lagos continues to grow, ensuring safe and affordable shelter remains one of its most urgent challenges. In Lagos, for News Central, Bettina Nwili.
I want to say thank you to Bettina for bringing us that very beautiful report, especially love the beginning. Now, it's a tough reality many Lagosians are walking up to. Their income stays the same, but the rent, well, it doesn't. And it's affecting everything from quality of life to job mobility. So, joining us now to break this down, we have Olakunle Afolabi. He's a Lagos-based real estate agent. Yes, that kind. And, of course, we also have joining us via virtual sources, Mr. Kabir Akingbolu, a legal practitioner and also tenants' rights advocate. Gentlemen, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Well, let me start with Olakunle here in the studio. From your professional standpoint, what's driving the rent hikes that we're seeing across Lagos, especially in areas like Aja, Ikeja, and even Surul area as well?
Okay. I would say it's the demand. The demands are really high as we speak. We see people coming to Lagos on a daily basis, coming to hustle, coming to have their business, invest in Lagos. So the demand of the people coming into Lagos is high. Let me talk about Surulere because it's like central. Surulere is one place you can stay. You can easily get to Ikeja, you can easily get to the island. So because of that, everybody wants to stay at the central part of Lagos. And in Surulere, we have people that their houses are not just built for their comfort. They are building it for business. Because people come into Lagos and they find themselves in that part of Lagos where they want to live is very important to them. And this landlord in quote have seen that people are coming.
There's demand.
So the demand is high. When there is a vacant apartment, for example, just one vacant apartment, you see like 20 people on the queue. The landlords are saying this, and what it brings to their head is, let's increase, let's push the...
So you're saying that, Judith, are you thinking the same thing I'm thinking?
I'm thinking what you're thinking. I'm thinking the brainwave is
the agents
thinking.
have no hand in adding to the prices of these buildings, like maybe informing or coaxing the landlords to make it higher. So
We're even telling that the demand is high.
Because we have the impression, or rather, residents have the impression that the more you pay the landlord, the more the quota for the agents as well. Is this true, or am I totally wrong?
Okay, to an extent it is false.
Why?
But there is some atom of truth in it. So we have different professionals. Like in my early stage of real estate, I used to operate on the island where things are very much moderate. And during COVID, I had to stay at home. And my eye opened to another location of Lagos, which is Surulere. Then I used to hear it that agents influence landlords to increase their rent. I, for one, I don't do that. And I have hardly come across someone that does that, but I have heard of it. But recently, in the past 5 years, I decided to take myself away from some certain things, or from certain practice.
What are these practices?
During the COVID, I started operating in Surulere. Then I get to hear that agents take 20% agency fee. Where I come from, we do 10%. So how come we are doing 20% here? I fought that battle. No, on the island, we don't do this, we don't do that. But I ended up saying that my clients are not giving properties. They'll give to the client of the people that are requesting for 20%. Again, I'll fight it, I'll end up that they're just throwing me at the backyard. I'm not doing any work. Oh, so now this is what it is here. Then I have to start adapting to it. But when I hear a lot of complaint, I decided to shift myself away from just renting. So I focus on management. If we have to bring a change, it starts with us too.
Right.
So property management for me, once I have a property I'm managing and we want to rent it out, I stick to 10%.
Right. Okay. And let me come to Mr. Kingbolu for this one. And I have to ask you about the exploitations that we're seeing. 20% tenancy agreement, rather 10% tenancy agreement, 20% service, agent service fee. There's also the extortions that they take when you're going for inspections. I'm going to ask you about Olaku later. But let me ask you, are these legal? Is there any laws that are protecting renters, for such extortion? Is it even extortion?
In fact, it's not even extortion, it's direct stealing and fraud, cheating, corruption, immorality, lack of fear of God. This is what we see everywhere. I am happy that Mr. Olakunle is a professional. I've been listening to him. With the short time I listened to him, he's a strict professional. And I'm also happy with him that he is not a good Nigerian. In the sense that a good Nigerian in this circumstance will lie. He told us the truth that, well, those things are not impossible. You understand that it does happen. You understand how often or whatever is what he cannot tell us. I have to commend him for that. It's not everybody that will do that. Now let me tell you, he talked about house deficit. Well, to an extent it may be true, but the truth of the matter is not the house deficit. And again, this issue of agents influencing, it is a real situation. It's real, it's factual. There are things that are happening every day. As a lawyer, I also have a property department where I do a little bit of it. We have seen a lot. Once an agent, we have the two types of property managers or two types of real estate, professionals. We have the quacks, whom we call agents. You know, people like Mr. Olakune is not an agent. You understand? It's a strip property manager. You understand? Now, when you look at the way they do their things, honestly, you will cry. In fact, every day you see, let me cite a practical example. You know, there are a lot of ways to address it. Under Lagos State agency law, an agent is entitled to only 5%. Now, in a situation whereby, I will cite an example, I wanted to take a house I took a house for my driver, a room, place me and slap you, sometime in 2000, about 3 years ago. I took the house for 120,000, that is 10,000 naira per month. I paid 1 year, which is 120. The agency fee and the agreement and commission, they will call it, is another 100,000. After that one, caution fee / damages 20,000, security fee 25,000, sweeping and what do they call it, service charge another 20,000 for one room. So you find out that while the house rent is 120, you are paid another 200,000 naira for unnecessary things. Under the agent, I don't have problem. Like Mr. Olakune has said that they are saying 20%. No, it's illegal. You understand? If you are saying 20%, it is illegal, but assuming 20%, I don't have problem with that. For example, the example I have cited, you understand, 120,000. 10% of it by simple mathematics will be 12,000 naira. If it is 20%, it will be 24,000. It will be affordable. But these agents, these quacks especially, will just come and say, okay, the house rent is 200,000, 100. Agency agreement. And no lawyer will prepare anything. They already have an agreement prepared, maybe for a lawyer by about 10 years, 20 years ago. They just copy from the system and sign it and say, in most cases, I have seen it as the landlord that is signing for lawyer. He will give you agreement, prepared by his lawyer, he will just give you, or prepared by somebody who you don't know. This is unfair, it's unfair, because if you are going by the law, even if you are not going by the law, if you put human face to it, and you apply human face and you are paying 20% agency and agreement or whatever you have, it will still be fair to people. But I think government should come in here. People should, I have fought this thing in 2016 or thereabout. I wrote a letter to the state governor for the I intimated him with some of these things, and he said he was going to do things. Something about it. It was reported not the news. Nothing was done till today. So government should do something here.
Mr. Kimbo, thank you for that. Ms. Zino, go ahead. There's so much. Honestly, there's so much to talk about. And just looking at it on a 360 angle, right? There's also the issue of 1 year rent tenancy or 2 year, where a landlord will say, oh, you have to pay 2 years upfront. If not, you cannot take the house. Landlords will outrightly ask you demand for 2 years. And I think that the Lagos State government have now said that it must be monthly rent. But what's the law regarding rently payment? Is it illegal to pay 2 year rent up front? Mr. Kimbolu.
Yeah, you see. State, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Are you with me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, sir.
Under the rent law of Lagos State under Fashola, in fact, he modernized everything that you have to pay only 1 year, and after that 1 year, if you want to renew, you pay 6 months. But for convenience sake, the tenants themselves, like I will also prefer 1 year, because 6 months will just come now. And again, if you say 6 months, most of the landlord or property owner will not get value for their money, because most people will not pay. So 1 year is still okay, but fine. But at that time, I mean, this set up very well to an extent. At that time, when 1 year was established, the agent started 1 year, 2 year agreement and agency. They will collect it. I have done it. It has happened in a lot of transactions that I handle, and I'll question them, what is this? Do you understand? You don't do this. And again, One of these things is when you say, oh, their strength is 200,000 naira, the agent will say, you are going to pay agency for 2 years. There are a lot of evidence to this. I'm telling you, and again today, you want to take a house in Lagos, you want to take a house in Ibadan, you want to take a house, I don't know Port Harcourt, I am not, but in Lagos and Ibadan that I know very well, they will collect inspection fee. You are the one who is looking for business for goodness sake. I want to patronize you. Please, do you have a house? You say you have. It's for me to come and check it. It's okay for me, I will take. If it's not okay, I will go. But you say I must deposit either 5,000 or 10,000 for you for inspection fee. This is undone. And when you talk of damages, I also consider it oppressive to the tenant, because the cloth you buy today, you can't expect the cloth to be in the same standard in 2-3 years. If I'm using your house, it can't be as new as the time I took it. So I think the government should do something about it. This issue of damages and caution is illegal. It's not in any law. It's just a modification by people. Do you understand? So, and when they do this, when you are going from the house, they will tell you it's refundable, but it is a lie. By that time, the agent and the landlord are no longer talking. So that is just the thing.
Very true.
Right.
Very, very, very true.
You make a very solid
very
case.
strong point. Let me turn to our agents in the house here. I don't know if you're going to jump on the defense of all the other agents that are perhaps maybe not like you, like Mr. Kimbulu has noted. You're a very good agent. In any case, what are these fees, these caution fees, this kind of fee, that kind of fee that amount to so much, sometimes even bigger than the rent that you have paid?
Yeah.
Where do they go to? Do they go to the agents? Do they go to the landlord? Regarding the caution fee, do I get it back? How many people even remember to even ask it back?
Do you know, as you just said, it's now.
I've never received it back, and I've always left every house in pristine condition.
Yeah.
So what gives all these fees?
Okay.
Does it fall under the management that you?
Yes, of course. Let me start with maybe your colleague here can testify to it. Let me start with when I was growing. I found myself practicing the way some so-called agents are practicing. I would say condition, but I found myself taking an inspection fee at a point. Yes, I take it, but we need to get to a stage where we don't ask for that anymore. I thank God I'm in that stage now. But I want to defend something, the inspection fee. Like my colleague has said, like Barrister have said, there are some quack agents that, because of where they stay, or where their office is, wherever they are using, and where the property is, landlords, in the real sense, landlords are the ones that are supposed to employ their agents to rent a house. If the landlord has employed this agent has no right to take inspection fee. But because of it is in the open market, someone from Yaba can be coming to Surulere or the island. You don't have to force your client to pay inspection fee. There can be mutual understanding, like, okay, this is what you are paying this fee for.
For logistics, perhaps.
For logistics, or for then you understand. Some clients will be like, okay, it's no problem. We are all human beings. I can fund you on that. That's for the inspection fee. Now let's go to this caution fee of a thing. When I used to do more of just renting as an agent, I hear the caution fee stuff, and we do caution fees for damage. I used to look at the kind of clients I bring. These clients are decent. I don't think they'll leave your house the way you have given them. They'll probably put it in more standard. So now when they are going, there are some clients, there are some tenants, because they are moving to a better place, they don't even remember to ask for their caution fee. Now it's not the landlord's fault. There are some tenants, they will ask, the landlord will not give them, maybe because of damage. So the time I moved to management, when I said, okay, there is a lot of things going on the ground with the agents, there's a lot of things going on the ground that doesn't sit well with me. Unprofessional. I don't like to be in those pictures. So like I said, I put myself in the position of a lot of management. When I started managing people's property as their facility manager and all of that, I started seeing the importance of caution fee, truly. I had a property I was managing. This house was like 2 years built. Then they called me into the picture like, okay, come and manage it, let's see how it goes. We did the overhauling renovation. We gave it out to some certain clients. They stayed maximum of 2 years. When they were moving out, the house was right off. The rent they were paying as at then, the renovation that will be done is even more than the rent that they have paid. So this caution fee sometimes, and not just for damages only. We have tenants, maybe where they are doing post-billing of NEPA, where they have securities, cleaners and all of that, they don't pay. Or they have bypassed their meter to direct. When NEPA comes, the deposit is going to be on the landlord's head. So this caution fee sometimes go for all those things. We have seen people where they pay caution fee, and when they are leaving, the house is still very beautiful, and they give them back their caution fee.
Right.
So for me, as property manager,
it's
what I do with my landlords
measure.
now, when a client is paying rent, the caution fee is supposed to go to the landlord, so to say. But part of my deal, before you endorse me as your property manager, is that caution fee comes to me. Why? Because I'll make sure there is a separate receipt for this caution fee, and you are getting it back.
Right.
Judy, I know you want to ask a question, but on that note, what about the 5% versus 10% versus 20% agency fee that is, well, Mr. Akingbolu just noted now that it's supposed to be 5%.
Like Mr. Akingbolu has said, some agents brought such deal to his front, and he was challenging them that, what is all this? He said it too, he was honest, that he have seen it. If I'm honest with you, I hope nobody is going to hold me responsible for this. With what I have seen, I promise you, there are some houses, they have landlord, they have caretaker, they have property manager, they have principal agent, which is the mandate. Because of the chains of agents that have already brought the clients.
Dark times. Dark times.
You will see them calling this 20%. Trust me, there are clients out there that they will tell them agency fee is 20%, legal fee is 20%, and they will even be willing to pay you 30%. Guess what? It's because of these chains are much. It's annoying. I'm not saying it's proper. It's annoying. But you hear, the caretaker is taking, you even hear the landlord's wife is taking, this is taking, that is taking. By the time, imagine if they have charged 10% of, let's say, 1 million. If they have charged 10% of 1 million, by the time they are sharing the money, the agent that did the resuffering, that brought the clients, gone. How much is it going on with?
In your earlier submission, you were saying that although you know that there are some agents that fuel the prices, that help gauge these prices, there are also landlords who are in this to make money.
Yes, I can give you an instance. There is a property somewhere that I had opportunity to manage. And whenever I manage property, I always tell the landlord, stay out of our business. Don't put your eyes in it. Let's allow us to do our best job. We have people coming for inspection. So Surulere is not for the faint-hearted where you want to look for a house. Trust me, it's crazy there. There are about 15 people outside. We already fixed a price for this house with the landlord. This is the ideal price for this. But because of the demand, it's either the landlord increased to 2 years or all of a sudden jack up the rent.
Pause. Let's come to Mr. Akingbolu. You've just heard the instance that Olakunle has just given regarding the landlords jacking up the rent or increasing the number of years that should be paid. I'm a potential renter. At what point do I call in legal services? Because I haven't engaged in any way, I haven't paid or anything. What recourse do I have? Because at this point, no contract has yet been signed, but I'm finding myself at the whims and caprices of the landlord or maybe even the agent. How can I get legal advice or legal input in these cases where no contract has yet been signed? So I'm not ripped off. So I'm not ripped off. Because if you don't, then we'll only just continue getting ripped off. The next agent and landlord will do the same. The next one will do the same. At the end, you might just bend or capitulate to the situation.
You have no choice.
What choice do I have, Mr. Akingbolu?
Yeah, you see, just like a friend of mine told me sometimes ago when I was advising why he took some unfriendly loan. He said, Mr. Akinolu, no man opens his 2 eyes wide to enter into a ditch. That when you are in trouble, you see, legal services, you may not need one. You may not need anyone at all, because you are, most of the time they are pressing you to leave the house where you are living. Maybe they have given you quick notice, or they have sold it, or for one reason or the other, you can no longer cope with the amount they are collecting there, or the house is no longer befitting to you, or no longer enough for you. If you say you want to engage the services of a lawyer, the lawyer will give you proper advice, and the agent will not allow the proper advice to work. If you mention the proper advice of the lawyer to the agents or whoever, they will tell you, okay, this one is not ready to collect a house. You understand? And again, when you look at it, thank God we are seeing somebody who is very objective here, Mr. Olakunle. He has told us the whole thing that that is just the truth of the matter. But I can tell you also, one of the problems that increases this agency thing, and I said it earlier, I don't have problem if it's 20%. But this time around, it has no percentage. They just collect whatever they want, because you, like he said, mandate is the person that has been directly given the instruction to rent out the house by the landlord. So he will put it on his platform or to his friend. A friend will tell another friend. A friend will tell another friend. So if you are unlucky to get it from the fourth person, the fourth person will tell you, I'm not directing. I will collect the key from the landlord. You go to the third person. The third person will go to the second person. The second person will go to the fourth before you get to the house. So as if the agency by the mandate is 20%, the second person will say 25. The third person will say 35. The fourth person will say 50. So they will get their own. So when they are getting it, nothing is happening to the mandate money at the end of the day. So this is one of the problems that we have. But I think we should have a system that is working. Just like I said earlier, these things are done by quack. And again, like Mr. Olakunle has rightly observed, I have seen situations. If I rented a house for a friend, it was the landlord who collected the legal fee. The agency fee, he collected 60% of what was paid and gave 40% to the agent. Look at that. So he took 160% of the agency and the agreement, legal fee. They don't use, in 80% of the transactions, except the ones in Surulere, in VI or eyebrow area, they don't use lawyers at all. They already have the format of the agreement. They just take it out and they sign.
Mr. Kimbolu.
So this is the situation.
Mr. Kimbolu, regarding that situation that you have just described now, how can I get legal recourse? Because it's at the beginning, and all these monies have been mounted on. And
they are prying on your desperation.
Yes, exactly. They are pretty much predating on my desperation at this point. So how can I get legal help at that start point now?
Honestly, there is no legal, there's no legal assistance that you can get, because it was voluntary. But we call it duress, a kind of mild duress, or we call it undue influence. They know the circumstances or the condition you are. The person you contacted for out knew that, my landlord has given me 2 months. I have to get 2 weeks to get out. This is expiring. You have told him. He already knew that one. He will tell the next person that, he has money, he's desperate to get out, so let us put it this way. He will go and borrow to pay that first one, but it may not take more than 1 year there. Do you understand? This is the situation. Unfortunately, there is no legal remedy because they didn't force you. It's more or less like a force, but it's an undue influence. But because the circumstances you have no choice. So you entered into it willingly. If there is any other thing, that's when you can legal recourse. But I think government should make a law regarding it and re-establish and re-encode the issue of 5% in the tenancy law. There is a law of agency of Lagos State. That's when 5% was mentioned, or it's mentioned. Let it be in the tenancy law, it will be effective. That's what the government can do. And again, as to increment in we know that there is inflation, there is a cost rising in cost of building material, but the government can still regulate it because what is being demanded by some tenants and by some landlords are justifiable. Under Governor Mobolaji Johnson in Lagos State, we have, I think, 5 categories: Category A, Category B, Category C, Category D. They painted out, they divided Lagos into about 2-3 segments. Even even now, under the rent law, Lagos is divided to, I think, two, the island and the mainland also. But then, the painted house under Mobalaji Johnson, there is an amount you can collect from it if you are living in Ogba. The unpainted house in Ogba, there is an amount you can collect. In the island, on the island, painted house, there is an amount you can collect, there is one you cannot collect for the unpainted one. Mud block and all that, they categorize it. I think we have got to that stage that government should do that and help the people, because what people are paying for house rent, what they are paying for agency especially, it is evil.
All right. All right, that's Mr. Kimbulu there, just saying that the government needs to do more in spite of the tenancy law, because outright what the agents are doing and the landlords are doing is evil. Mr. Kimbulu, many thanks for that. To wrap up this conversation, I want to come to Afolabi for your final thoughts here. Olakule, in just succinctly 30 seconds, right, do you think that the Lagos state government is doing enough to sort of resolve the issues that we're having? Do renters know what their law is, and where do they blur the lines?
Okay, so I wouldn't have been happy if I didn't point this before leaving. We have a lot of body that regulates real estate in Lagos.
Wow.
That government regulated body, but they are not functioning. I think if
they only come when you are constructing, when you are redoing your house.
So they are only interested when you are constructing, when you want to demolish, for you to get approvals and all of that.
That's what
but when it comes to you, the civilians getting, there are a lot of body regulating it, but they are not functioning. I bet to see anyone come out and say, okay, we are functioning, let us help you. So at that stage, clients are helpless. There is no law that can help them. The bodies that can help them are nowhere to be found. And let's talk about Lagos State LSDPC homes. They are supposed to, these houses, like the ones you display on your screen, these houses are supposed to be for the masses. They are supposed to be very affordable, low cost. But trust me, when you go to those buildings, go find out yourself how much they are renting them and see if they are low cost.
So the Lagos State government is also culpable, is what you're saying? All right, very interesting. Luckily, thank you very much for giving us such insight. We don't see the agents as absolutely bad people anymore.
Yes, this is
thank you. Mr. Kimbulu, thank you very much for joining and giving us legal insight into the complexities of the Lagos rent situation, renting.
Mr. Kimbulu is an agreed renter. He's upset, and I love the passion. He said these people are not only extorters, they are criminals. I love it, I love it. Thank you so much, sir.
Once again, Olakule Afolabi, real estate agent, and of course, Mr. Kabir Kimbulu, legal practitioner and tenant rights advocate. Do stay tuned, we've got more conversation inside of Breakfast Extra. Welcome back, another conversation here for Breakfast Extra. Let's talk press freedom in Zimbabwe. It's once again under the spotlight. Award-winning journalist Blessed Mhlanga has been denied bail for the third time, this time by the High Court in Harare, after being held in custody for weeks and charges many say are politically motivated. Now, Mhlanga, a senior reporter with Alpha Media Holdings, is accused of transmitting false information and obstructing justice, charges he denies. Media watchdogs and rights groups are calling for his immediate release, insisting his detention is a direct attack on freedom of the press.
As Zimbabwe edges closer to its next electoral cycle, the treatment of journalists like Mhlanga raises critical questions about democracy, transparency, and freedom of expression in the country. And so to explore this troubling development further, we're joined in the studio by Daniel Ojukwu. He's a senior investigative reporter at the Foundation for Investigative Journalism. He joins us live here. We're going to be joined by a journalist during the course of this conversation, but first of all, let me welcome Daniel Ojukwu.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
Good to see you live in the flesh.
Good to see you in the flesh.
Likewise. Likewise.
Likewise. Let's get started. You are no stranger to issues such as this, press suppression, freedom of expression, and even this type of accusation. But let's start with Blessed as well. First, what does his continued detention signal to journalists that are working in high-risk regions across Africa, especially those reporting on government affairs?
In Blessed's case, the biggest problem here I see is with the courts, because all over Africa we are faced with courts that are no longer independent, We see it in Ethiopia, we see it in Mozambique, we see it in Burkina Faso, in several countries in Africa. And Nigeria is also no stranger to issues like this. We're supposed to be shining a light, leading Africa, but we're also guilty of abusing cybercrime laws, creating laws that abuse the rights of journalists. Blessed's case is peculiar because his media wasn't served a lawsuit or anything. They went after the journalist. He did a broadcast for Hope and Heart and Soul Television. He interviewed a politician, a former soldier, who is also part of the president's party. And this person criticized the president and said he was disappointed, he was sad that he helped the president come into power because, according to him, that's Blessed Gazer, the person who made these comments. The president has become corrupt. The president has taken the government to be his personal property for his family, his wife and children, and all his condemnation for the president were his own opinion. But all Blessed Mhlanga did was broadcast this through the TV station he works for. So where's the place for freedom of speech? Because if a person can go on TV and say his own opinion, and the government says, you who aired it, you who did the interview, you who attended the press conference, because there were two. There was one in November 2024, that was the interview, and then January 2025, there was a press conference, and the government is saying you shouldn't be airing the opinion of our fellow party member.
So that's one for freedom of speech. That's one against freedom of speech on the part of the other Blessed who was being interviewed. And then there's another thing for when it comes to freedom of the press. So there are two issues here that we're looking at, am I correct?
Yes, yes, two issues.
So since I practice journalism in Africa, how worried should I be? And I'm saying this looking at the greater context of Africa now, including countries like Nigeria or Ghana, all the rest. And you mentioned something about cybercrime, which is, if you look back through the week, it was a point to note as there were protests across Nigeria that had to do with aggrieved Nigerians talking about the Cybercrime Act being used against Nigerians. So I'm asking for my self-preservation now. How scared should I be? And Judith as well. How scared should we be as journalists operating in Africa?
Naturally, everyone should be worried. Nobody signs up for journalism thinking at the back of their minds that I'm going to die one day, I'm going to get arrested one day. It shouldn't be.
Except our producer Matthew, he's been arrested a couple of times. But you see, it happens.
Yes, it does. It's like when you sign up for journalism, you're pretty much signing up as a soldier or a policeman. It's like you're going to war. It shouldn't be. If you practice in some saner countries, some saner societies where things are calmer, you'd understand what it means to do your job without fear or favor. But in Africa, we can't wish away our problems. The governments try to do these things. They say, don't talk about it. There was a time in Nigeria where the government said media houses should tone down their reporting of conflict. Nigeria is at war with itself. We have intertribal conflicts. We have terrorism. We have religious extremities. These things are our realities. We can't wish them away. We have corruption. We're a corrupt nation at every level. In the private sector, in the public sector, at every level of government, there's corruption. So if we stop reporting these things, they're not going to go away. The government isn't doing enough about it. So all around Africa, governments just don't want the people to complain. In Zimbabwe's case, they've been ruled by the ZANU party, ZANU PF party, since 1980. Robert Mugabe headed the country for a long time, and he didn't want to let go of power. Now, people fought for independence, people fought for change. The new guy who is in power now, Mnangagwa, is trying to sue for a third term. He wants a third term. The last election was deemed controversial. Several activists, several groups condemned the process and said the CCC party should have won. There were a lot of riots, there were a lot of people complaining. So many people were saying, no, these things were fraudulent. Now, all of that has passed. It's 2025, 2 years have gone by. People want to have their say. That's what democracy is all about. Majority have their way, minority have their say. But in the case of Zimbabwe, the majority wants to have their way and prevents everybody from having their say. Now, detaining this journalist has then meant that there's more public outcry because the government is accusing him of inciting the public to violence. But what the government is doing is more insightful. I mean, he has spent over 40 days, about 48 days thereabouts.
Do you think that the courts are also culpable in this? Is there a complicity between the courts and the presidency or the federal government there, because there's supposed to be an autonomy in some sense when it comes to the judiciary, but there seems to be some intersection or relationship. Let's talk about the legal basis of this continued detention and also denial of bail, and also the charges levied against him. Is there complacency from the court?
Yes. I started by saying that the courts are supposed to be independent, but they're not. Now, the reason you deny someone bail is if you consider them a threat to society. If a person has committed a felony, you say, oh yes, we're denying you bail, or he's accused of committing a felony. You're considered innocent until proven guilty, but because of the gravity of this crime, we can't grant you bail, or because we consider you a flight risk. This is a recognized journalist. Everyone knows him. I mean, he can be identified. There's no harm in granting him bail. You have a video publication, you have videos on YouTube which the government is using to accuse him. So if you're denying him bail, on what grounds? So every court seems to have been compromised. And it's unfortunate because several governments know how to get into the court system. You just build a few houses for judges, give cars to judges, and it blurs the line.
That doesn't sound like Zimbabwe. That sounds like another country.
Do they
all across
have green
Africa.
and white in it?
Yeah.
I
All
think I
across
know the
Africa.
country.
Sorry to cut you there.
Please go ahead.
However, in the case of Zimbabwe, Mhlanga here in the phrase, ZANU-PF, let's put history, Mugabe's rule, and the fact that the president currently is going for a third term.
Yes.
How do you see this ending? Where do you see this going? Is this steeped in tradition and this is how perhaps maybe it's going to go on? Or do you think there might be even international concerns that might come into play and help the situation? The word is out there. We are the press and we're concerned as well, and we're speaking up for Blessed as we are here. This is our bit. But where do you see this going? How do you see this proceeding?
Okay, Zimbabwe is a sovereign country, so international interference can't do much. The foreign governments would probably sanction if it gets to that level.
Well, what about international communities, or rather international diplomatic communities that they're in? For example, as the SADC, that's the South African Development Commission, as well as the AU, can they step in to mount pressure?
Exactly.
They can mount pressure, but the pressure they can mount on Zimbabwe is to force the government to consider its citizenry. If you're issuing sanctions, trade restrictions, doing all your foreign policy to cage Zimbabwe, all you're going to do is affect the citizens. So it then depends on how much the president and the government consider their citizens. There are so many dictators who want to stay in power. So if their love for power is greater than their concern for the citizens, then they could just ignore. Zimbabwe is a very poor country. I mean, they've had currency crisis for as long as time. They've had to devalue their currency. Zimbabwe prints billions of their currency in notes. You could see 1 million Zimbabwean dollar, 10 billion. So all of that means that the country's economy is so poor. And when you have a poor economy, you have less likelihood of coordinated efforts to change the government. It took military intervention. It took a large coalition for them to fight for independence. And ZANU-PF has remained in power for roughly since 1980, 40 years, thereabout. So if they're going to change things, it's going to likely be within that party. So if anybody is mounting pressure, the big question is how much of concern does the government have for its own people to want to bow to the pressure and then change things?
I think there's a bigger thing at play here that I'd like for you to talk about, Daniel, and that is dictatorships and this hold on power. Even though all of these countries are sovereign, right, and their affairs and the internal affairs are internal and cannot be interfered by external bodies, but communities like the AU, ECOWAS, as well as SADC can, do more. Don't you think they can do more in terms of speaking to leaders and, trying to sustain democracy and the tenets of democracy, the ethos of democracy in these countries? Because from Mugabe to Mnangagwa and now going for a third term, repression, detaining journalists, what gives?
Okay, those confederations are usually very good on paper. In reality, many of them falter. We've seen it with the UN, we've seen it with NATO. NATO was unable to prevent the situation in Ukraine. They watch it crumble. even though they courted Ukraine and said, come join us, we would guarantee you this. UN has overlooked a lot of things. I mean, UN has tried to vote on the Russian war. They've tried to vote on
Israel. Picture you're painting, so the cavalry is not coming.
It doesn't work. I mean, one party could just veto it and it all dies. And they say, you are trying to vote against Russia, and Russia is saying we veto, and everything goes down. I mean, US would just raise their hands and say, we're not doing anything against Israel, we veto. Everything just dies down. So AU, I can't remember how much success AU has recorded. ECOWAS has no business in Zimbabwe because it's West Africa. So most of these confederations are not as strong as the countries that are part of them. The countries have to contribute to these things, but no country is willing to invest that much time and effort. And how many countries are even interested in upholding democracy that much?
Let's go there now. So good. Thank you for coming. You're welcome. I'm opening the door for you to step in. Let's talk about the greater implication here when we look at the entire continent and the recurrence of these kinds of instances. Let's talk Nigeria. Let's talk, what other countries do we have?
Oh.
We've seen other West African countries go from these kinds of instances into full-on dictatorship, military rule, and all of that. The hold one party has on most of the apparatus, even the courts as well. How much threat are we in when it comes to Africa? How much threat do we see ourselves going downhill when it comes to freedom of press, freedom of speech, dictatorships, and all of that?
We're in a big mess, majorly because in this current age and time, everybody is on their phones. People are not willing to take enough action, unlike before. We've gone from having people like Jaja Opobo, we've gone from having people like Fela Anikulapo Kuti, to having people who just want to make money and move on with their lives. We have people saying, oh, politics doesn't concern me. Meanwhile, politics affects everything you're doing. And it bothers me because what the ruling party is doing in Nigeria now, the activities they're doing with election tribunals, policies, state of emergency, everybody is watching it. And the more you cripple the system, the more it comes back to potentially bite you in future. Because if the opposition gets power tomorrow, what leg would the current administration have to stand on when they want to form an opposition? Because when you weaken the entire structures, you abuse the constitution, next time when someone else has the opportunity, they point back to precedent. Yes,
exactly.
You set that precedent. So if you say nobody can win an election tribunal ruling against the ruling party, then nobody ever will.
Is that what it seems like in Nigeria?
That's what it seems like. That's what it seems like.
So, I'm sorry, I've been doing Greek mythology today. So opposition is the Trojan horse.
It seems like in every administration, in every country, you can't run the risk of being a one-party system, else you fall into authoritarian rule. You fall into a potential
most African
monarchy.
countries there now? Are most West African countries
right, because
there now?
if we use a case where there's green and white flag going on, there's green and white in the color, there was a strong opposition that was very vocal about issues, and it came in as a Trojan horse that seemed like they were coming to fix things,
And they've been given the opportunity?
And they've been given the opportunity, thank you, and
you finish yours.
Finish it. You're the man, my woman can catch me. You will run fast.
Talking about one Zimbabwe issue.
The thing is, opposition doesn't have to be perfect, but we need to run an administration where there is hope for a potential change. We need to know that if things fail, we can change. But if there's no hope for change, and a group of people can just decide within themselves that, oh, this person isn't functioning, since our party has the structure, we'll just replace this person with this person, so your votes don't matter. So whoever we bring forward is going to win the election. Let's just decide who your next president is going to be, who your next governor is going to be. That's the situation we're in. We shouldn't run that risk, because where we keep defeating institutions like this, then people become emboldened. Before, the government would wonder, oh, if we take this decision, people would act in this manner. If we do this, people are going to react in this manner. But when they see that people are no longer reacting in that manner, or there's no consequence, if you have no consequence, then you have no responsibility. They'll just do whatever they like and move on.
Daniel, I want to say thank you, but not without mentioning that this is a very weird conversation where I feel conflicted, because it doesn't seem like there's a solution anywhere in the horizon. We find ourselves, much like most African countries, in a situation where it's an Ouroboros. We just keep going around just like that. So let's continue to hope, in the case of Blessed Mhlanga, that he gets his freedom and that freedom of press is upheld in Zimbabwe. Right. And we hope that that is not an isolated situation, that it continues on to other African countries and we can do our jobs without fear and people can speak as well. And even if they dissent, that at least can have their words out there. Right. And maybe some consideration given to them as well. That's all we pray.
That's what we pray indeed. And the other side from the police in this case reminds me of a certain case here in the studio. But I must say, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Very insightful as well.
Very calm, by the way.
Very intelligent. It's quite calm. And stressing you last year. Oh, wow. Anyway, this is where we close the curtains with this discussion, right? When we come back on the other side, it's still protest and dissent, but this time a ban on protest songs. After the break, stay with us.
You're welcome. Our final discussion here. Let's talk art, activism, and censorship. They collided once again in Nigeria's music space, and veteran rapper and social critic Idris Abdul Karim, well, he's back in the headlines, but not for the usual reasons. His latest protest, well, the protest single, let's call it so, it's off his newly released album, Tell Your Papa, has been banned from airplay on radio and television by Nigeria's National Broadcasting Commission, the NBC, who labeled the track as inappropriate and unfit for public consumption. But the ban has sparked fierce backlash online. Abdul Karim himself claimed he was offered a bribe to pull the song before the official ban and says the track merely speaks to the reality of poverty, corruption, and injustice in Nigeria.
So once again, the age-old tension between freedom of expression and regulatory oversight has taken center stage. So today on Extra Special, we are asking, is this about standards or silencing dissenting voices? And so joining us, we were supposed to be joined by two media personalities and also pop culture commentator. One is Daddy Freeze and the other is Ima Ugoli, who's also a music curator, but unfortunately they're unable to make it. But we have Aminu Hayatu. He's a public affairs analyst and the CEO of Mother Earth Foundation and is known for their strong advocacy on civic freedom and environmental justice. So we're going to have this conversation with him. Aminu, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for coming on. Let me just start.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Let's just go right into it, shall we? In a democracy, how concerning is it when regulatory bodies start banning content that criticizes governance or the status quo?
Okay, thank you very much. I think we need to start off by clarifying, the understanding, around the whole issue that led to the ban of this song. And I think one of the reasons stated in the circular shared by the National Broadcasting Commission is that the content is considered to be deemed inappropriate for broadcast due to its objectionable nature. So if you start off from there, you ask, what is the objectionable nature of the song? I think that would have been clarified even in the circular by the NBC so that it would be properly understood what they meant by inappropriate. And even going ahead to cite the 3.1.8 section of the broadcasting code, that it violates that. So I think generally, if you look at it in the context of Nigerian politics, you understand that this is only one of the many actions by the current administration to really shut down decent voices in terms of their appeal for better governance, for good governance in Nigeria. And I think looking at the precedents of governance, a lot of issues have been, a lot of cries have been offered by Nigerians in the public space, referring to the hardship of life and, survival in terms of in the Nigerian polity, in terms of the economic realities that Nigerians are facing. So I think that did not even prompt Idris Abdul Karim to go ahead and produce a song. It has, because the song is perceived to be a response of, to the outing of the president's son. in parts of the country where he went to places and mentioned that his father is the best president and he's doing well, and people are coming for him just like that and so on. So that was what prompted, I believe, Idris Abdul Karim's song. And in the whole of the song, I listened to the song over and over again. I didn't hear any word that really can be considered as inappropriate for broadcast. So I think the Nigerian government is policing on the political environment, in order to shrink the civic space in terms of, decent voices that speak for the condition of the country. And I think this is what should be considered as inappropriate, not a song that cries out for. I mean, just recently, the Nigerian youth, embarked on a 30 days ranting challenge. If you look at that in the social media, it's all of these issues that Idris Abdul Karim has raised in his song that this ranting challenge has expressed. So I think it's the MPC is just being used as a tool of oppression, because this is very inappropriate in any democratic environment where freedom of speech and expression and of assembly and other fundamental rights are supposed to be respected and protected. The government does not, have that right to engage, in policing the political environment, because we are operating a democratic government. And under democracy, there are provisions that have actually allowed for freedom of expression. And Idris Abdul Karim has just used his own platform to express the feeling that not all is going well, and even to respond, to what the son of the president has gone to places to raise. And why didn't the MBC see as inappropriate what the son of the president went to places to preach? Why wasn't that appropriate? Because if the Nigerian populace feel aggrieved, by the utterances of the son of the president, that means that the sensitivities are in question. And then a certain policing body that it considered itself should have come out to say, well, this is a public space, and I think you are inflicting into the sensitivities of Nigerians, that you should not say such things when Nigerians are expressing their dismay about the Nigerian government. So I think this is quite what is supposed to be inappropriate, not Idris Abdul Karim's song of Tell Your Papa.
All right, Mr. Hayase, thank you very much for noting that. Now, it's not his first rodeo, by the way. He's been here before with the Obasanjo administration, if I'm not mistaken, or something having to do with Obasanjo. In any case, Idris alleges that there was a bribe attempt before the ban was actually put into play. Let's put that on the side. Now, if this is true, what does that say about the relationship between power and cultural expression? Not just cultural expression, but forms of expression and maybe apparatus of expression. If that song can be banned on, well, radio and television, what about social media, which is the biggest form of apparatus currently? Do you see this also going into a sort of clamp down on certain material being put on social media? If that happens, in how much trouble are we?
No, anyone who is a Nigerian is a living witness to the increasing militarization of the public space, by the Nigerian government. We've seen in the past where social media, critics are being picked up, and taken to. This is just becoming a tradition, in Nigeria, and it's forming up, a political culture that is unhealthy for democracy. Because what the Nigerian government in relation to its people is supposed to do is supposed to use the constitution as a basis to rule, so that even if there's any need for the government to call the attention or at least challenge whatever action it perceived is illegal by any citizen of the country, it should do that, using legal means, not just, for example, using power as a base, to crack down on decent voices and the freedom of expression. We have seen just recently the youth copper who has come out to really criticize the current government, to say that things are not going well, difficulties in terms of livelihood and so on. When people talk about these issues, they make reference specifically and particularly to what is happening, the prices of goods and services, means of livelihood, the cost of living and all of that. The removal of subsidy that has led to the hijacking of prices and so on across the country. They are making reference to issues. I think if the government has any reason to respond to this, it should do that in such a way that it replies to these criticisms in a more constructive way, rather than using their power base to clamp down on people who come out to speak. And the implication for that the Nigerian government is setting a precedence of a political culture that will come, to be that people don't have the right in this country to come out and air their grievances whenever they feel aggrieved with the government. And the other implication is that even the government itself stand the risk of being, a victim of such, policing of the civic space, because in the end, even the government itself will not be able to appeal to the people to be law-abiding and to respect, the laws governing the proper conduct of affairs in the country. And this in relation to the, other business of the government, the government will continue to lose the moral higher ground, or the so-called moral foundation, to continue to ask people to make additional sacrifices, because the people have grown disillusioned and disenchanted with the ways and processes of the government. And I think this is very dangerous for democracy. Popular participation is what brings about democracy. If people do not have the environment, the fertile environment for them to express their satisfaction or otherwise, or grievances in a political system, it means that it is a military regime in disguise. And I don't think that we want to go back to that kind of experience. So political culture is expressed, through inputs, demands, and expressions made by citizens who are being governed. Remember that it is the vote of the people that has taken this government into place. And it should provide an avenue where the people will make injection into the political system what they feel is their condition. And it is only appropriate for the government, after receiving complaints, demand, and other issues, process this through government machinery and produce programs and policies and decisions that will address these issues that have been injected into the system.
You work in civil society spaces, right? So I have to ask you this next question about, censorship. Because censorship oftentimes is the term that they use, when they want to constructively, I won't say ban, but push back on what artists and activists like yourself and civil society groups like yourself, especially artists, whether it's musicians or fine artists or the likes, creatives, when they want to also, dissent with this dispensation, whether to the federal government or just socioeconomic issues, there's always a pushback, and it's guised under censorship. How can they constructively push back on those censorship? And by they, I mean the artists and activists.
No, it is left for the Nigerian public to be resilient against oppression. This is just that there's no need to mince words about this. Nigerian people need to understand their rights, and they need to demand to exercise these rights, irrespective of what someone feels, up there. The most important thing is that when people continue to push for their rights and exercise their freedom of expression, of assembly, and other fundamental human rights, I think it is the only way that the government can understand that it's a no-go area in terms of clamping down on these rights. The other way that this can happen is to draw the attention of government agencies that they are not acting on behalf of the individuals that are sitting in those in positions of authority. They are supposed to represent the interests of the people, because the mandate of the people that has led to their positioning in that place. The National Broadcasting Commission particularly needs to understand that, because in the past there has been antecedents, and circumstances where journalists where attempts were made to shut down broadcasting houses, journalists and other critics, public space critics. And this is unacceptable in a democratic environment. So I think that we do not have to get to the extent where there is a clash, that's a bitter clash between the Nigerian public and the people in position of authority. The abuse, of course, we've seen in many African countries where such agencies are used to abuse, the rights of citizens. They are weaponized. They are used as tools of oppression rather than as tools of governance, as they have been set up by the Constitution of the republics which have produced them. This is very important. And I think that the other way is that international communities must put eye on this. Non-governmental organizations all over the place are there, and they are operating in their respective tempos to be able to ensure that democracy prevails in the Nigerian political system. And I think that such organizations should really be on their heels to be able to look at these issues on their merit and stand firm and resist against any form of oppression that will lead to a very militaristic public space that prevents the citizens from expressing what they feel as grievances.
This is going to be our final question, and I'm going to like things a bit, well, not too much, but two scenarios here. A scenario where this song was let to have its course through media, television or radio, and then it ends as all songs do, or one where it is specifically persecuted, and this pushes us to have hard discussions about it, even on news, on social media. Which would have been the best course, do you think?
Well, I think, like I said earlier on, it is what triggered this was that tour by the son of the president. And this song is a reply to the claims that that the son of the president has made in the public space. So I don't think there's anything, in fact, people have different ways in which they express what they feel. The music is one of them, just like we have other platforms of activism. Music is also a platform for activism. And we know the history of even the singer himself. He has produced songs that have consistently spoken, to the plight of Nigerians and the condition which Nigerians are subjected to by governments in place. So this is not a new thing, and I don't think it should be looked at as if there should be other ways of expressing one's feelings than the way they choose to express. Others will go on to the streets, and we just saw a protest in some part of the country, that was organized by aggrieved Nigerians. What is wrong with that? They have the right of, to organize. And then we also see the social media, activists also doing their own, from their own angle of social media advocacy. We also see musicians such as Idris Abdulkarim expressing this. So if for any reason there is an incident that triggered for a song, it is the business, it is the duty of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission to look at the song on its merit and see if it does not violate any rule or regulation. And if it doesn't, then the NBC should not react to it as if, it is a song. And like I said, even in the letter they circulated, they didn't mention specifically what that means, because you said you put it under classified as not to be broadcast NTPB code, which does not explain anything as far as I'm concerned. You have to say that certain words or utterances or such sentences or names called violate these codes, and therefore we deem that its content is inappropriate for broadcast. And people will understand you. But if you do a blanket, statement and say that it is not to be broadcast, then any responsible Nigerian would not resonate with that.
Mr. Hayatu, I think that sums it up succinctly, perfectly, brilliantly. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. There's a phrase I think we're gonna close here with, and that is militarizing our democracy in present-day Nigeria and what it means for us as we go into. That's really a call for every Nigerian, whether NGOs, citizens, child, adult, young, old. This is the time for us to sit up and not stay silent, and the choices, the ball is in our court. Well, Mr. Aminu, thank you again.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, on that note, I believe it is time for us to close this weekend's installment for Breakfast Extra. And what a couple of shows it has been since yesterday. We've enjoyed it. I think it's time to clean the sweat off our foreheads, because you've done well, Judith.
Likewise yourself. It's been...
Thank you.
Sweet.
So if you want to see what you missed, perhaps maybe join us on YouTube, where we have most of these segments all put up in there.
Absolutely.
You can see it all from start to finish anytime at your convenience. Since today's Palm Sunday, and the Catholic, is it?
I am conditionally a Roman Catholic, but I'm agnostic. And I don't go to church. People already know.
Since when?
I don't believe it. Since I can't remember, even as a child. Moving on. Good night.
They want us to leave. Goodbye.
Goodbye.